Hello again, friends. Welcome back to Fibre Haptic Crafts. My name is Vicky, or Victoria, or Vic if you are my sister. I'm a historian and fibre artist based in Manchester in the UK, and today I want to show you another really useful object that I take out and about with me all the time, which was dead easy to make. Even if it had been 10 times harder to make, it would definitely have been worth the effort. But I'm going to show you the easy version. So this thing here is known as a lotus bag. It's very much not my invention. These have been around for quite a long time. Lots of YouTubers have got tutorials making them. So if you find mine confusing, by all means stick lotus bag in your search bar and have a look at somebody else making one too. The reason I find this so useful is that it turns into a little storage pouch, like a sort of little, I don't know, medieval coin purse or something like that. It's very, very stable because it's got these 4 petals on it. And when you open it out, if you open it out about halfway, what you get is this lovely, stable fabric bowl. And this is fantastic because you can see easily everything that you've put into the bag, and it sits nicely on a flat surface beside whatever you're working on without rocking about or tipping over. So the fact that it's soft when it's closed is great. You can just stuff it in a bag. It's a lot easier than carrying like a hard box of items around with you. But when you open it up, it is this wonderful, stable place to put all of your bits and pieces. And I find this especially useful if I'm travelling on the train. I do go on the train quite a lot up to Scotland to see family. And even if I'm just in a seat with one of those little flip out trays, I can sit this on that little flip down table, and it's got all of my threads in, it's got scissors in there, it's got a little bag for putting my snipped off threads in there. I've managed to keep a little cross stitch that I'm working on in there as well. But the main thing is I can see all the coloured threads that I've got, I can dig through them, and there's very little chance of the bag falling on the floor or all the bits flying about all over the place. So it's a really nice compact way of keeping things together. Now typically, as with this one, you would make this out of a square of 2 different fabrics which you have sewn together. So typically you'd take a big square of one fabric, a big square of the other fabric. You'd sew all around the edge with the right sides together, and you flip that inside out, finish it off, and you end up with a finished square with 2 sides, 2 different colours. So then you really get, it emphasises that lotus pattern. So typically that's what you'd be doing on a sewing machine as your first step towards a lotus bag. What I'm going to show you instead is how you can make one with absolutely minimal sewing. Honestly, if you can sew 6 or 7 stitches in a roughly straight line and do that 4 times, you can make one of these bags. And we're going to do that by starting out with a finished square of fabric. Now I'm going to use a napkin. I got quite a cheap set of napkins. I think possibly from Dunelm. Maybe they've got a bit of a pattern on one side and they're plain on the other side. So you still get that nice contrast. And this one, which I made much earlier, you can see it's got a lot of my washi tape collection in it. So again, I can see what's going on in this bag pretty easily. I can ruche it closed relatively securely, and then what I actually do now is I hang that on the wall out of the way. And I'm going to make another one out of a napkin today, which I'm going to store my stamps and the link pads in to hang on the same hook out of the way, because they're taking over slightly. So this one was made out of a napkin. You could also use a bandana if you want to make quite a big one. If you want to make quite a small one, you could use a fresh, clean handkerchief. That would also give you a nice finished square of fabric. Or you could use a fabric that doesn't fray particularly much. Some stretch fabrics don't fray at the edges. Like if you got an old t-shirt, you could maybe cut out a square of old t-shirt. Quite thin felt would work. So anything where you don't need to finish the edges, either because it doesn't fray or because they've been done for you. But napkins are great because you can buy a pack of them for not very much money. You can make a couple of bags for yourself, maybe make a couple as gifts if you want. These would also, I think, look particularly good as part of like a buffet or a picnic if you had some wrapped sweets in there. Obviously, if you're going to put food in there like bread rolls or something, then you'll want to make sure that this is washable, so your stitches are going to have to be fairly sturdy. But in any case, that's like a ready-made little bowl for all kinds of purposes. So that is what we are going to make. So I mentioned food safety because in my case I have decorated the back of my napkin. This is the part that's going to form the outside sort of bulb part. So this part essentially is plain in this case, but in this case I've decorated it with a whole bunch of cheap fabric markers. What I did in that case was I drew some marks on it with fabric marker, and then I dampened the cloth just with some wet kitchen paper to blur a lot of the marks, and then I left it to dry. It then ended up incubating under the cat for a while. Jasper felt that this was an entirely necessary step of the process, and who am I to argue with his expertise, really? So retrieved it from under the cat, drew some additional marks on it, so these are the ones which are a lot more visible, and then just left it 24 hours, which is what the pack of fabric markers suggested. So that should be nicely set now. It will probably wash fine, but I would not necessarily trust this to be food safe. So I'm using this for craft materials, not food. That's just something to bear in mind. Essentially, what the bag is a square of fabric. Unfortunately, this isn't square. I hoped it would be. The other one was. It's actually 1 inch longer on two sides than it is on the other, which is a little annoying, but it will still work to show you don't have to be totally exact. So you get your square, decide which is going to be the outside of the bulb of the bag, and then which side is going to form your lotus petals. In my case, this is going to be the outside, or the base rather, the outside of the base, and then this side is going to be the petals. You want to find the midpoint of your fabric. So in my case, I folded it in half, just sort of press down with my finger here, fold it in half the other way, and just press with my finger again. So you can sort of see where it's creased in the middle. You could mark it with a bit of chalk if you wanted to. And I'm then going to bring each of my corners, not all the way to the middle, but about 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inches away. So that's folded almost in. Bring that one in a bit as well. You can see, because this isn't a square, the gaps here, whoop, are going to be a bit smaller than the gaps here. Okay, bring that one almost in. And just get this as neat as you can. Again, once it's all got a drawstring in it, it really isn't, you're not going to know that this wasn't totally even all round. What you want to do, what will be the most noticeable thing, is you want to get your petals roughly the same size, roughly even looking. These gaps around the edge don't matter as much. And what we're going to do is we are going to form a channel on these new sides that we've made. So to try to show you on the one that I made previously, I can't open it all the way because I've put some extra knots in it. But when this was made, it was this way up. I had my petals all pointing into the middle, and I made a channel on each of those 4 new sides that we have created, so that then when you turn it the right way out, the petals end up on the outside and we've formed our bag shape. So that's what we're aiming for. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to take the ribbon or cord or whatever it is that we're putting through the channel to tie it all up. We're going to see how wide that is against here. We're going to give a little bit of allowance, so a little bit that side, leave a little bit of a gap that side, so we can actually feed this ribbon through. And we're going to, as best we can, mark a line for us to sew down. And you're going almost up to the seam of your finished edge, but not necessarily all the way. So this gap here is going to become part of the bigger gap. That's absolutely fine. So we've got our line there, which we're going to stitch down. You can do that with the other 4 corners, and then we're just going to do a really easy running stitch fixed at both ends along this line. I am going to use the blue thread, which was in my little embroidery kit before. Just blue embroidery thread. I'm going to use 2 strands of it, I think. I've got a reasonably hefty needle. Again, it doesn't really matter, and I'm going to stitch down that line. So, can I help you? Excuse me. No, I don't think your help is really necessary in this stage. This is a little bit delicate for you. Okay. All right. Apparently your presence is necessary. Fair enough. Hello, darling. Hello. Hello. Hey, baby. All right, we're going to show the people how to do this now. done, are we? Okay. Okay, so that is my first line done. As you can see, it is rough as anything. My stitches aren't even. I've wobbled away from the line a bit. I was attempting not to accidentally stab the cat at any point, or making sure he wasn't going to drink my cup of tea. But it's fine. It will still work, I promise you. So I'm going to go away and do exactly the same thing to my other 4 corners, and I will see you shortly. Alrighty then, now we have all of our channel sewn. I've gone around all 4 of those folded edges, almost up to the existing seams. Now it is time to put in our ribbon, string, cord, whatever it is that you want to tie it up with. And we are going to want enough to be able to go around all 4 sides with a little bit of excess for a knot. We don't need a lot of excess at this end because almost all of the time it's going to be slightly cinched up. You're never really going to want to open it out this much again. So around those 4 edges with, I don't know, about 4 inches spare should be absolutely enough. And we're going to want to find a way to be able to push our slightly floppy end of ribbon or whatever through this channel. We need a way to keep track of it. Now, if you've got one, you could use a big yarn needle or a needle with a large eye on it. There are specialist bits of equipment you can use to pull cords through a channel like this. What I am going to try and do, an idea I had earlier this afternoon, is put some rounds of tape around the very edge just to stiffen it up, and hopefully that will be enough that we can feel where it is inside that channel. What I should have said before is we are going to sacrifice maybe about an inch and a half off the end of this, because when we pull this tape back off again, it is not going to play nicely and come off neatly, even with this slightly weak masking tape. So let's bunch that up a little bit, wrap our tape around and around and round and round and round and round we go. Slightly overdoing it here. Just have a bit more. So essentially, you've got here is a thing a bit like the wrapped end of a shoelace. There we go. Pretty solid object there. So if we go down this channel first, yeah, you can sort of feel that in there. So I'm gonna just feed that through. It is easier with a thick needle. Or a safety pin, or a special device. Just to show you that this is possible, I will put myself through the faff. Come on. There we go. All out. And carry on. Right then, so we're fed all the way through, and now what we need to do is flip this upside down and somehow teach this flat object, which really enjoys being a flat object, we need to teach it that it can become a bag, and that it wants to be a bag, and that it will enjoy its new life as a bag. So I'm going to flip this upside down. We can, if we want, start to fold our petals out a bit, and we're going to pull this tight. Now, as I said, this isn't going to want to necessarily resolve itself into a bag. It's going to fight us ever so slightly. So one thing that really helps is to put an object in the middle of it. I'm going to go with a frog, because why not? And that is going to help hold the middle down while we pull these sides in. So pull some of the excess and then redistribute some of those ruches and wrinkles. Fold it in a bit more, redistribute them a bit more, bring in all of the excess, and we have nicely enclosed our frog. We have the pouch bit underneath with all that decoration showing. We have our 4 lovely petals. Now we can leave the ribbon like that if we want. What I quite like to do is to bring it out to open it out into that bowl shape to sort of the maximum extent that we're ever going to want it open. I think maybe about like that, and then tie a knot in the ribbon at this point. Just basic reef knot, 2 overhand knots there, and then however much we dig around in this bag, it is not going to open out fully flat again. And then if I want to be able to hang this on the wall, I can tie another knot in the end here, not at the very end, but leaving a bit of excess so it doesn't unravel itself. There we go. And there we have it, starting with a cheap napkin that wasn't even square, even though it was supposed to be. So starting with the wrong shaped napkin, sewing it very loosely, very roughly, not bothering about getting a perfectly straight line on it, feeding the ribbon through without any of the usual devices for doing that, just with a bit of tape on the end. With all of that roughness and the wrong stuff, not worrying about being neat, we have still ended up in not very much time at all with a quite attractive, extremely useful lotus bag. And even with my several years now of sewing much more complicated objects much more neatly, I am still really pleased with this. It's given me a great sense of achievement. Please do like this video if you did in fact like the video. If you disliked it, please go and deal with your feelings elsewhere, and subscribe if you would like to see more of this kind of thing. That's all from me for now, and I will see you in the next one.